know that FAO Expert have a report, so I welcome and take them very seriously, but I'm not always followed.
The role of the expert panel is to bring expert knowledge about the status of commercially exploited marine and freshwater species to the CITES parties. This is important because many CITES parties aren't involved directly in the management of these species.
In the Secretariat's experience, the FAO Expert Panel has been professional and diligent in carrying out these scientific and technical reviews. The assessments themselves are factually underpinned and scientifically sound. Of course, we believe wholeheartedly that the parties take into consideration the results of the expert panel when taking decisions related to listing proposals of marine species that are commercially exploited. It is worth noting, however, that this expert panel is an independent process and has its own terms of reference. So not only do they use the biological listing criteria of CITES, but they also take into account other aspects such as trade, management issues, and socioeconomic factors when they make these assessments. And to the extent possible, they also assess whether this listing proposal will be a good conservation tool for this particular marine species that they are studying.
The first meeting of the FAO Expert Advisory Panel in 2004, before the 13th Conference of the Parties of the CITES Convention.
This is FAO's 6th expert panel, and this panel is dealing with sharks and sea cucumbers.
The panel is made by fisheries experts. They are selected respecting a geographical global coverage, a gender equity, their expertise related to the species.
I think the panel as a whole has a good range of expertise that cover the questions that need to be asked to address whether these species are meeting CITES criteria for listing.
When evaluating the listing proposal, the FAO panel of experts takes into account not only the biological characteristics and the distribution of the species, but also the impact on the fisheries. I mean the fisheries, the gears and the area, and how they change from an historical point of view.
FAO not only brings the experience of how these stocks respond to fishing pressure, but they also bring the understanding of how management interventions can either recover or not recover those stocks.
The process that we're following is really quite clear and straightforward. We're working through the criteria for listing on the CITES appendices, and then we're commenting on some of the implications.
FAO's input on the likely effectiveness for conservation of a CITES listing is very important, as there are many tools in the fisheries toolbox, including management of capture, but also regulation of trade, which is a part of CITES listing. In order to inform both CITES parties and FAO members on the deliberations of the FAO's 6th expert panel, we will produce a scientific and technical report. In addition, there'll be a 2-page summary of the deliberations of the panel and videos such as this.
The panel adopted the report the last day of the meeting, and the report cannot be changed after that.
I've often been asked as the convener of the FAO Expert Panel, what do you do to help food insecure fishers? And the answer is quite simple. FAO strives to ensure that countries have both healthy and productive waters. This is very important, that man is in a joint venture with nature, so both people and the environment can flourish.
I think the process is very interesting because everybody has a different background, different information, brings different information for different regions, and gives a very global view of the situation of the populations.
And I think there was a lot of cross collaboration and The group was certainly more than the sum of its parts, I would say.
It was more about the rigour of the data available and less about our own personal views or gut feelings about the resources. So I think we've reached a consensus based on the scientific information available.
We had a good agreement. That was one of the interesting things, like for the sharks.
So we've produced quite a comprehensive assessment of available data, and it's ready now to go on to the next steps towards the COP.
We've not had any dissension in all what we are doing.
Our review is much better than the proposal. That's what I believe.
And I think FAO adds great value to the CITES process and bringing in an expertise in fisheries that wouldn't otherwise be in the system.